Hey, besties, it's Corey, and welcome back to another episode of Crafters Roundtable, the podcast where I get to sit down with individuals in the quilting, sewing, and crafting space and learn more about their insights and experiences in this wonderful world of crafting that we're in. Today's guest has so many different accomplishments under her belt. We were chatting beforehand, and I can't wait for you to learn more about her, her patterns, and some of her cool inventions. But before we get started, please make sure you are subscribed to the podcast wherever you are watching or listening so you can stay up to date with everything going on here at Crafters Roundtable. So, without further ado, grab a chair and join Carolina Moore and I at the table as we start chatting. Hi, Carolina. How are you?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I'm excited that you are here. This is going to be so much fun. We have so much to talk about and dive into.
Absolutely.
This is so good. This is so good. So, to give everyone that is listening or watching a little bit of context, we met at QuiltCon this past year, and unfortunately, she met me in the middle of a website conniption that I was going through. So it was a very quick. Hey, how you doing? Hey, would you like to be on my podcast? Cool, we'll chat later. So it was kind of a funny little snafu on how it worked out. But now we're all calm. We're very collected. We're good. Everything's fine.
But it was super relatable. This is how we live in imperfection. So it is what it is.
It definitely yes, it most definitely is what it is. Now, I want to get into a few things with you before we get started. I kind of want everyone to learn a little bit more about you. So, I did a deep dive into you, your website, your patterns. I'm a very nosy individual. So I want to talk about all the different hats that you wear. You're a quilter, you're a designer, you're an educator, you're an inventor. I'm sure you're a few other things as well. But walk us through kind of like your how your creative journey started and what led you to launch Always Expect More.
Ooh, okay. So how much time do we have?
Oh, we have all the time in the world, Miss Girl. Just let us know.
Well, I've always been a creative person and I grew up in a fairly creative family. I have an aunt who is a professional artist. She actually works 3D in clay and sculpture. So clay and stone. And then my mom was a garment sewist growing up. She and her sisters, they made a lot of their own garments growing up. So when I was growing up, she made a lot of my garments as well. And she taught me the basics of sewing. And I had a lot of dolls with dresses, but unhemmed dresses because hemming is not my favorite part of sewing. And it turns out in quilting, we never have to hem a seam. We also never have to like do a finished fit. You never have to do a muslin when you're doing a quilt. Like you just make the quilt. If the points don't match, if things don't line up the way they're supposed to, it'll still keep you warm. So
Okay,
quilts are superior to garments in all these ways. You'll also never outgrow a quilt, right? You'll never
true.
start it and then finally finish it 6 months later and you've turns out that you've gone from being 10 years old to 10 and a half and now you've grown a full two sizes and it doesn't
Right.
fit you anymore. Like these things don't happen in quilting. So when I was 12, my mom sent me to Quilt in a Day, Eleanor Burns' shop. And Eleanor Burns was like, this was the heyday of Eleanor Burns. This was like 92.
Okay.
And this was like the throwing the fabric behind you, be a quilty stripper, just fun L days. And I made my first bed size quilt. On the very first day, I cut my finger open with a rotary cutter.
Oh my gosh.
I did. I needed 2 stitches. My aunt came and picked me up because my aunt was the one who lived in the San Diego area and was able to pick me up and take me to the doctor where I got those stitches in. Elle sat and waited with me while I was waiting for my aunt to come leave work and pick me up, and she still remembers that. I've talked to her a couple of times, and I was a very memorable 12-year-old quilter. But, we joke that quilting got into my blood that day, so I've just been quilting ever since, and I quilted as a hobby through college. I had friends who were having their first babies, and so I made a lot of baby quilts for friends. I brought my sewing machine to the dorms when I was in college, and I did do some repair work for some friends, but mostly it was, like, quilting on the weekends when I didn't have classes. I would throw on some Lifetime TV and just do some sewing. I graduated with a degree in, advertising, so I worked in marketing, advertising, and sales for years, and so I had that kind of business background. And then when my husband and I moved to Las Vegas, I got a job at a quilt shop doing their marketing and special events, and that's when I really got to get into the industry side of things. Before that, I was a quilter, and I still am to this day, a quilter who loves going shopping, buying the things, making the things, seeing other people's patterns, all of that.
Yeah.
But that's when I got to see the backside of things, like the how hard quilt shop owners really do work and all the things that quilt shop owners do to have a successful quilt shop, and what it looks like from, yeah, the non-customer side of the fabric cutting table. I then so at that point, I had my oldest, and then I got pregnant with my youngest and, decided, "Okay, I'm gonna stay at home." I retired, but not really because I like to keep busy. And I wanted to have something, and I think that most folks who have ever been a mom can kinda relate. I wanted to still have something that was mine, and I'd started blogging, so that was the birth of Always Expect More, was to have this online community. It was actually scrapbooking in the beginning. The very, very early blog posts are all scrapbooking blog posts.
Okay.
But I loved quilting, and I did more and more with quilting. And it was a thing that I kinda did on the side while I was raising my kids, and it was super flexible because if my kids needed me, then, I could ignore the blog for 2 weeks, and if my kids, didn't need me as much, then I could focus in and do things for the blog. Um, so it was a fun thing that I did on the side. I got a whole community of crafty ladies and quilty ladies and that are many of whom are still friends of mine to this day. Um, I would go to conferences and get to see them. And then I really just dug more into quilting. Quilting was my love and my passion. I'd written my first quilt pattern. Well, it was a bag pattern, but when I worked at the quilt shop. And then yeah, I started doing some video because everyone said, "Well, you have to do video because YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, but
Right.
you're only seen on YouTube if you actually post videos on YouTube."
Right.
So, despite absolutely hating the way that I look on video, to this day, it is what it is.
Right.
And yeah, I put myself out there on video and I yeah, I found this, yeah, community of quilty friends, and I don't know. We talked a little bit about notions. I have one of those brains that likes to solve puzzles,
Okay.
and I can't put a puzzle down. So when I see something that I feel like, "Hmm, could that be made better? Is
Right.
there an easier way to do this? Like, how what if I turn it upside down? What if I do it this way? What if I" and my brain, likes to look at things on all sides, and it'll sometimes come up with solutions for things.
Yeah.
Um, when Okay, so I kinda went roundabout. I got into, like, the business side of quilting, and I started running a quilting business, doing pattern design and working with other companies, as, like, an influencer, I suppose.
Okay.
Um, and I wanted to understand the business more
Mhm.
because I understood quilting, but business is business no matter what business that you work in. So in 2018, I went back to school and I got my MBA from UCSD.
Okay.
Um Because I wanted to understand how business worked, and UCSD has a program that focuses on entrepreneurship, which was perfect for me because that's what I am as an entrepreneur, and one of the classes there that I took was on ideation, which is coming up with ideas, and basically every class session was a different session on how to think about how to think about products, and any good product is really it's a solution to a problem. But one of the ideation sessions was how the spot on dot was born, and the spot on dot was the first notion that I designed. I had a relationship with, some folks in the industry who make products, so I went to them and said, "Hey, I have this idea for this product. I would have no idea how to have it made. Would y'all be interested in licensing it from me?" So I licensed the spot on dot to Gypsy Quilter, and it's a set of magnifying lenses, and you stick them on any ruler that you want. They pop on and off. There's like they're not suction, but they're sticky, and you stick them on your rulers, and it magnifies the lines so that you can see them better. Because the average quilter is over 60, and most quilters are actually there are more quilters over the age of 60 than there are under the age of 60.
Right.
And I discovered when I turned 40 that apparently our eyes, when we turn 40, suddenly go rapidly downhill for near vision. Nobody warned me, but as soon as I turned 40, I had readers in my purse, on my desk, by the sewing machine, by the ironing board, like, I know in the car, I have them everywhere.
Yeah.
And so that near vision affects our ability to make quilts. And so the spot on dots were a solution for that, being able to see those lines better.
I mean, sold even for me. I mean, I just turned 30, but I still like seeing those really like intricate. Like if I can get right up to measurement, make sure that line is absolutely perfect. I think it
Yep.
works for so many different individuals. I definitely hear that the use case, of course, for kind of how it was born, but I think that's incredible. And you said it's 5 different sizes?
It's 2 sizes.
Oh, 2 sizes.
So
I don't know where I got
there's
five
a
from.
large dot and a small there's a large dot and a small dot, and they just stick on your rulers, and, they have this adhesive on the back, and I compare it to the adhesive that we have on, like, our, strapless bras, or there's some, like, nylons that have this adhesive that kinda sticks, and when you I'm not sure if you've ever had this experience.
I don't have that experience, but feel free to inform me. I'm all about education, so let me know.
Um, well, it's so funny because when I present about this, there'll be some, larger chested ladies who say, "When do you think I've ever worn a strapless bra?" Like, come on now. Like, this is fair, okay? Not everyone has had the same experience, but, um, they usually know the kind of adhesive that I'm talking about, and over time, will pick up the oils from your fingers, and it'll pick up lint from your sewing room. You just wash it with soap and water, and then it's sticky again.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's really, really cool. I think back into your earlier portion, when you kind of got into this journey after doing, the garments and whatnot, and you went to the quilt in a day. You mentioned cutting off part of your finger with a rotor cutter. I think that's just like a ceremonial thing for everybody. Because I was speaking with Holly Ann Knight yesterday, and
Okay.
she had done the same thing. I've done it. My aunt dropped a rotary cutter on her foot. We've
Yeah.
all been all over the place. I think it's just kind of a ceremonial thing. I just
Yeah.
so welcome to the secret society. That's your induction right there.
It's like being maimed as part of our hazing.
Exactly. So we're going to talk a little bit more about all of your other incredible notions a little bit later, but I do want to talk about what inspired you to, you've got always expect more. What took you to doing your pattern site, and talk to us a little bit about that.
So Always Expect More is the blog, and
Mhm.
then Carolina More Patterns is the pattern shop. And so folks who've been around for a while will remember the OG Craftsy. So Craftsy is now, I believe, owned by TN Marketing, but before that was owned by somebody else, and before that it was owned by the like original owners, if I remember right. There might have been original owners before that, but they had a portion on their site where you could, at no cost, put up patterns for sale. And so had started designing patterns, and I would put them on there for sale. It cost me nothing. If didn't sell any, then no harm, no foul. And
Right.
anytime I sold any, they actually gave me 100% of the proceeds. So
Oh, wow.
it was like Etsy, but only quilt patterns and completely free for the designers to use.
Okay.
I I don't know exactly why they did it. I don't, but I mean, it might have been more of like a lost leader for them to bring people onto the site where they can then sell them Craftsy courses and get their email address and then market them. That might have been it,
Right.
if I had to guess. And then when it got bought out, I believe it was when it got bought out. I might be wrong there, but there was a point where, for whatever reason, that wasn't sustainable anymore. And so they went through, and any patterns that were really good sellers, they kept, and anyone that didn't have a great seller, and straight up, none of my stuff was a great seller at that point. It wasn't. Like, no one was pounding down doors to go buy a Carolina Moore pattern. I was completely unknown because we all start out completely unknown. Like, it's
Right.
totally fair. Um, so I had friends who had patterns that were good sellers on there, and so they got the email saying, "Hey," and some of them, it was even like, "These 3 patterns we're gonna keep, but all the rest we're gonna drop." Because mean, storing those patterns, I'm sure it took server space, and
Right.
they were covering the credit card fees on these credit card purchases. Like, yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
they I can totally understand, but anyway, I was completely dropped, and it was I don't know, I wanna say it was, like, November, December, I wanna say it was right around Christmas, and it was this huge bummer because, like, every now and then I'd get, like, couple dollars, enough for coffee in my bank account. It wasn't but it was that time early on in any designer's career, they'll tell you it's those early sales, every single one means so much, and that's not to say that the sales now don't mean anything, but you just remember them because 'cause they're so precious.
Right.
You're not looking at them in bulk or like big charts on a graph, you're looking at them as individuals. And so now I wasn't gonna have this anymore. So I gave myself, I wanna say it was a year. I said, "Okay," because I was doing my MBA at the time. I said, "You'll have 12 months to figure this out." Um, because, I mean, I wasn't losing a lot of money by not having it up, but
Right.
I knew that that's the direction that I wanted to go. So, you have 12 months to figure it out. I researched different, like, shopping platforms, and I ended up choosing Shopify, and I got it all set up, and I launched my patterns, and the rest is kind of history. Um, I I started this program. I with my so my background is advertising and marketing,
Okay.
and I think that nothing looks quite as sad as a shop that has 2 things in it, right? If you only have 2 patterns and those are the 2 patterns in your shop, they just look like it's like, "Well, she doesn't have much here,"
Right.
right? There's not a lot of choice, there's not of, like, excitement to dig through, and we quilters love to dig through.
We both know that those 2 patterns took somebody years to develop in their brain and write it all up. The amount of work, you're like, "Oh, I got 2 patterns on," but as a consumer, when you hop on it, you're like, "Oh, 2 patterns.
So, I
Okay."
didn't wanna have a shop that only had 2 patterns in it, but also the time to develop and create new patterns was going to take me time.
Right.
So, I started this program that I called, the, uh the ruler of the month.
Yes.
And we talked about that, or this was, yeah, we talked about this before we hit record. But so the ruler of the month was a program where every single month I picked a ruler. And the reason for this also was because at this point the spot on dot was already out.
Okay.
So every ruler I said, "Oh, and look, this is how you use the spot on dot with this ruler." So I was promoting my spot on dot, had an opportunity to talk about the spot on dot once a month without being like, "Hey, look, have you bought it yet?" I it was a very natural way to include the spot on dot in my
Right.
messaging every single month. I was talking about a different ruler and I was creating a video about it. So if someone were to search 6 months, 18 months, 3 years from now, like, how do you use the Strippy Star ruler? My video would have potential of coming up because of, like, SEO and search engine marketing. So I was creating content that was going to be like how-to content, evergreen content, and I would create a pattern that used that ruler, and it was a quilt pattern. So every single month I was designing a new quilt pattern. That pattern was free for the first month, and so
Okay.
I was growing my email list by having this pattern free for the first month, and then when the next month's pattern came out, the previous month's pattern became a paid pattern in my shop. So now I'm populating my shop with more patterns. And so it this program, it solved a lot of different things for me as I was trying to grow my business. It was helping me grow my email list. It was helping me create YouTube content and have consistent YouTube content out there. It was branding me as an expert, someone who knew about these different rulers and showing people how to use them. It was helping fill my pattern shop. And then eventually, after doing this for it was a little over a year, I think, then I looked at which of those patterns had sold the best,
Uh-huh.
and those were the first patterns that I launched as paid for patterns that I printed. Like, or well, they were already paid for, but they were PDF only. I Those were the first patterns that I printed and then gave to distributors for distributors to sell and be sold into quilt shops.
Okay, got it. So, with that ruler of the month, what were like, because I think it's a cool concept, it's very interesting. What were, like, the responses that you were getting from people on that idea that you had come up with? Like, how were they embracing it? What was kind of the flow from it?
So I still get comments on those videos, and a lot of it is, "Oh, I had this ruler and didn't know how to use it," or "I bought this ruler and I've been wanting to use it and I didn't know how to use it," or, I've always wanted to do that and I didn't know that this ruler could do it."
Okay. That's
So it's
awesome.
really yeah, more informational.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. Now, I've watched quite a few of your videos on your YouTube channel,
Oh, thank you.
and so from what I've seen, and when I read the comments, it all over different social medias and different videos, you've built quite a loyal following through these tutorials, through these patterns, and of course through the video content. Um, what do you say is like your approach to teaching people through those videos that make them feel a little bit more at ease and like they can do it as well?
Well, first of all, they can.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they can. So, like, I already have that confidence in them because I know, like, that's easy. But, eh, when I have conversations with the camera, because, like,
Mhm.
right now, it's super comfortable and super natural because I get to have a conversation with a real live, lovely human, which is you, and that's so easy to do because
Right.
we do that kinda stuff every day. But when I'm talking to the camera, I'm talking to I'm literally alone in my
Mhm.
office. All the main lights are off, so I'm in the dark alone in my office with,
Right.
like, these big, filming lights on, and, so I've got a big ring light in my face.
Uh-huh.
Mhm, you probably
I
have one
I
right now.
I know all about it. Yeah, lights everywhere. I'm blinded, but I'm fine. I can see you, so we're good.
Yeah. So for those watching this right now, I'm just sitting at my desk, which is my normal desk, and I just have the normal overhead lights on. So I'm not nearly as like fancy as you look right now, but and not like in my normal like video filming set, but this is just more comfortable for me to have a conversation. But anyway, so but I just imagine that that camera is like a portal, and on the other end of that portal is my friend sitting on her couch in her pajamas. And
Oh,
if I'm having a conversation with my friend sitting on her couch in her pajamas, I'm more comfortable. Talking to a camera is completely unnatural and uncomfortable, but talking to my friend who's on the couch in her pajamas, like, that's super relatable, I can do that,
right.
and I think that that's what comes across, is that I'm just having a conversation with a friend. Like, when I
Yeah.
write emails to my email list, I'm also, again, having a conversation, maybe, like, just like I would text a friend.
I love that. That's a really good way of thinking about it because I like, I've talked to a camera majority of my life, and it is it's much more natural just to sit here and chat with an actual human being. But when you're looking at a piece of glass that's just staring at you, it's like, okay, well, how am I going to get this across that it makes it feel as if I'm chatting with my friend at home on the couch in their pajamas? I love that. Thank you for that. That makes me even feel better. It's nice just to have that little thing, those extra little tips and hints and all the fun things when you're doing those tutorials. Um, as you've talked to many different people and done different tutorials and gotten email responses back, what is like the most common like fear or myth in quilting that you love helping people get over?
There's a big fear of failure,
Hmm.
of, like, "I'm gonna ruin it, I'm gonna destroy it, it's gonna be terrible." And at the end of the day, it's just fabric. It's just fabric. If it's really bad, then you can rip it out, and if the fabric is been frayed, you can cut it back up, you can turn it into a scrap quilt. There's so many other things you can do with it. It's just fabric. And an ugly quilt, and I have made some ugly quilts, but an
Same.
ugly quilt will still keep people warm. Right? Ugly quilts are just the quilts that you put between the sheet and then the quilt that you have on top during the winter, right? Like, ugly quilts can have a purpose too.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, definitely just kind of being able to get over the fact that it is just fabric, it is just thread. It's gonna be all good. We're gonna get through it. And what's also like what we might like you and I, for instance, might think is ugly might be like someone might think it's absolutely incredible, like beautiful, just because it's all about perception, honestly, at the end of the day. So it's like don't beat
Sure.
yourself up way too much because it probably actually, probably is a very, very beautiful piece of art even if you think it's ugly. A lot of the things that I do, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to show this to anybody, but people rave about it. And I'm just like, really, guys? Because I can see all my mistakes on it, you know?
Well, and whatever skill level you're at, there is someone that's wishing that they were at that skill level. If you've
Right,
just made your very first quilt, there is someone wishing that they could go make their first quilt.
right.
So, it doesn't matter what's yeah, everyone there's someone out there who wishes that they could be where you're at.
Right. Yeah, I always tell myself too, and I'm sure you do this as well. I always tell myself, like, when I'm thinking about something that I'm working on that I'm not happy with, but it actually really is good. Like past Corey was always wanting to get where present Corey is, and so you know you've made it, so keep on
Yep,
going,
yep,
and that's going to help you all the way through. Now, speaking of past, present, and future, I want to talk about past Carolina and one of the
yes,
inventions that past Carolina did,
yes,
and how it has helped shape present and future quilting and sewing people. So let's chat about your invention of the game changing glow ruler. Okay. This is, folks, if you've never seen this thing that you're listening or watching, you've got to go check it out now, immediately. It's the best thing that I've ever seen in my life. But I want to know about the idea of where this came from, how it's changed people's lives, how you know, what response have you gotten from the quilting or sewing community about this? I know you said that you've always had like that puzzle brain that you wanted to figure out how something could be better. But talk to us about this. I can't stop. I love the ruler, so I want to know everything.
oh, thank you. So, we talked about the spot on dot
Oh,
because one of the big things about quilters is that once we're finally old enough or once we're finally at a point in our life where we get to quilt pretty much as we want,
mhm,
we tend to be older. I mean, there's a reason that most quilters, so the majority of quilters are in their 60s or older. And so vision is an issue. Hand grip can be an issue. Stability of hands and wrists can be an issue. These are all challenges that the majority of our quilting population has. And one
mhm,
day I want to be a retired quilter and spend my time just quilting all the things. And so I want to have all the tools that are going to help me when I get to that point in my life and in my career.
right.
So the spot on dot was one of those because it helps magnify the lines. It helps with the vision part. And the other part, vision is increased by magnification and light. And we have, many of us, so many different lights in our sewing room. There are so many different companies that will sell us amazing, great lights. And all those lights reflect onto or down on the surface.
Mhm,
But to have a light in the ruler itself. And I am not a physics major, and there's no threat of me ever becoming an expert in physics. However, I do like dabbling in different I like knowing a little bit about everything.
yeah,
I call myself a very shallow ocean, which I have a friend who says that's a terrible definition, but it's so like my knowledge on things isn't always necessarily super deep, but I like having a really broad knowledge. And then if there's something that I'm like, oh, let me learn more about that, then I dig down and do in depth on those different things.
yeah.
So the way that light refracts through something like acrylic, plexiglass acrylic, when there's etching lines on it, it refracts against those etching lines, and those lines basically explode from the light waves hitting them, and that's what causes it to light up. And there were already decor pieces out there. Like we've seen decor pieces that you can have your name or whatever etched into acrylic, and then there's a light that goes through it, and now it's all lit up, kind of like a neon sign. But I thought, wow, what if we did that but with a ruler? Like,
Okay.
what if we made it so that it could lay on a table? And so I was able to find a company that was able to do that for me, and then we started with our first product, which was the proof of concept 6-inch ruler, and um, it was the most nerve-wracking thing. There's different points in my career where I've done, like, this is the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done. Like, when I ordered my first box bag templates. I think I
Mhm,
ordered like 500 of them, and it was the biggest check I'd ever written other than, like, buying a house, right? It
right.
was just it so scary to do that, and that was like and this with the I was importing big quantities. I wanna say, was it like I'm trying to remember how many that first order was. It might have been like 2,000,
Oh
but
wow.
it was a lot. I mean, it was a lot of money,
Yeah.
and I was really secret about it. I didn't let anyone know that it was happening, and my plan was to launch it at Quilt Market, and my biggest fear was that someone else had been similarly inspired because it happens all the time, but they were a big company,
Mhm,
and that they would have an entire booth at Quilt Market that was like 7 different sizes and shapes of glow rulers.
right.
And here I was with my, 2,000 little 6-inch glow rulers, and I was gonna eat all that money because no one was gonna buy mine because they clearly had, like, the whole market cornered, right?
Right, right.
And that can absolutely there are stories of things like that happening.
Yes.
And it's so scary, especially as a smaller designer, because that like the financial hit that my company would take because of that, because of this investment that goes bad would
Mhm.
really, really stink. So, but I did. I kept it quiet. I let distributors know ahead of time, "Hey, I'm gonna be doing this thing." But I didn't tell them what it was. I gave them the very bare details, and then the very last minute that they needed the actual text to be able to put it up on their site so that people could order it, that's when I gave them that. I gave them images, like, maybe a couple days before,
Okay.
and then the day before market opened, I actually went to their booths and I handed them each one physical product so they would have a sample to show, because I did not have a booth at market. I did that was another whole big investment that I wasn't prepared for.
Right.
I did not have the funds for that. I didn't have the staffing, the manpower, like, it's a huge investment to have a booth at market, but
Oh,
I
no
was
question.
with all the distributors, so I was like, "Okay, the distributors will have it," and then I was able to do, a schoolhouse presentation where I was able to present it, and just sometimes the stars align so perfectly, and you're so like, there definitely is skill, but also luck,
Yeah.
and the way that market set up the schoolhouses is I had 2 books that came out that fall as well, and
Okay.
so they lined up the schoolhouses, so I did a schoolhouse on 1 book, a schoolhouse on the 2nd book, and then the Notion schoolhouse that I had teased in the text of the Notion schoolhouse that I had new stuff going on, and so what happened was people came for that 1st schoolhouse, and I guess they liked me enough that they stayed for the 2nd schoolhouse, and then more people came for that 2nd schoolhouse, and
Right.
then all of those people stayed for the 3rd schoolhouse, and then more people came, so by the time I was presenting this 3rd schoolhouse, and this is just like a small conference room within, a trade show hall, right? There were people out the door, and someone has since sent me a photo of them, like, out the door because, like, it was not just standing room only, like, there was not enough room in here, and at that point, so I had released the video to the public about the glow ruler, and that was going viral, so there was a little bit of buzz about something going on,
Okay.
and I talked about my different notions, and I wish that someone had taken video of the end when I pressed that button and lit up that ruler. The entire room gasped. It was
Yeah.
the coolest thing. Um, and then it was off and running. I was market that was Friday. Was that hold on, that's Thursday. Market opened on Friday, and before the end of day Friday, I was already sold out of my entire everything that I had bought already was already gone. It was like it was like, "All right, well, we're gonna be in back order for months while I get more in and
Right.
figure this out." And it was incredible, and I knew that that the majority of people who bought it would buy it because it was cool, because it
Right.
is cool.
It is cool. Yeah.
But I also knew that there would be a segment of people that it would truly help them with quilting, and that was what I was really excited about. And the messages that I've gotten specifically from folks with macular degeneration who thought that their quilting days were over, who thought that they could not do this anymore because they couldn't see that the glow ruler has helped them, um, has been just like I'm in tears every time I get one
Yeah.
of those,
Yeah.
because knowing that I helped someone be able to quilt longer,
Right.
um, I mean, that's a gift. I love that. I'm getting goosebumps now. I love that.
You just gave me goosebumps. You're gonna make me start crying. It's
Like
it and, it's an amazing feeling to know that you've helped someone continue their journey or start their journey or, succeed in any
Yes.
way. Like, your idea is keeping someone going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's this I'm getting goosebumps now just saying that. Like, but it truly is. It's an incredible feeling, and it's an amazing tool. Now, how many sizes are you up to now?
Whew, so that's a whole the 6-inch ruler has been made and sold and continuously, and we're both in right and left-handed.
Okay.
We did have some manufacturing challenges with the larger sizes, and
Okay.
so we're re-releasing those and working through that.
Okay.
That's a whole nother like, there's a whole it's like the front of the house, back of the house. Like, the front of the
Yep.
house is amazing and it's fun,
Yep.
but then the back of the house is, "Oh, I've gotta spend, thousands of dollars on patents
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
copywriting and manufacturing," and, like, there's all the like, we don't wanna talk about that because that's
No,
not exciting.
no, that's not the fun part. Like you said, working at the quilt shop, on one side of the cutting table, everything looks glorious. On the other side of the cutting table, you worry about logistics, fabric price increases, you worry about shipping, you worry about stock, you worry about people. It's yeah, that let's keep that behind the curtain. Okay.
Well, when I interviewed at the quilt shop, I remember, looking across at the gal who was interviewing me, and I said, "I imagine working at a quilt shop is kinda like working at Disneyland." And I could just, like, see her face completely fall because she was like, this girl has an idealized version of what this is. If I hire her, she's gonna last a week, because 'cause I'm sure she'd seen it over and over again, and I said, "No,
Right.
no, no, like, I I fully understand." And, on the front, it's like Mickey Mouse and costumes and exciting and good times, but, there are children crying,
Yeah.
and there is vomit to clean up, and, behind backstage somewhere, Mickey Mouse doesn't have a head. Like, these are
Yeah.
all also, like, Disneyland is both sides. It's Main Street USA, and it's all the things that are going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I watched. Was scrolling through TikTok one day, and an episode of Wanda Sykes was on the Ellen Show, and she talked about like what you see on the front end of Disney, and then what you think like how being actually a Disney princess is after you leave work. It's like it's a funny realization to think about, but in more, I guess, fun, exciting things to talk about instead of talking about the logistics. I also want to talk about the foundation piecing water pen that you developed. Kind of what was the inspiration behind that? How has it been received? Because I love doing FPP. It's like one of my big things. I taught it when I was in Australia, and I think it's a really cool tool and concept. So can you talk us through that?
Sure. So the foundation piecing water pen was an intentional, like, I'm trying to solve a problem. I love foundation paper piecing. I love the accuracy. I hate tearing out the papers. Tearing out the papers is
It's the bane.
frustrating
It's
and
the bane of our
stupid and
existence.
right? It's messy and, like, I mean, I can't fix the mess, but so I wanted to solve it. I'd come out with the box bag template, and I'd fixed box corners for bags, and now I wanted to fix foundation paper piecing. This was gonna be my next, and I spent 18 months figured like, trying I ordered every cutting implement on Amazon, like letter openers, box openers, whatever, to see if I could find a way that you could cut the paper without cutting the fabric, because I
Mhm.
thought that that was going to be the way to solve this.
Right.
And I cut through a lot of fabric. Like, it didn't work. I found, it's like Edison. I didn't just invent a light bulb. I found like 10,000 ways to not invent a light bulb, right? I
Right.
found 10,000 ways to not that you do not want to take the paper. And it wasn't 10,000, but I found a bunch of really, really bad ways to take the paper out of foundation paper piecing.
Right.
And then I remembered when I was a kid, I used to do origami at school, and I would take a paper, and I'm gonna grab, like, a little piece of paper for anyone who's watching instead of just listening, but I grabbed it I remember when I was a kid, we'd take a piece of paper and we would fold it on the diagonal because the papers aren't square, and for origami, you usually want square paper. So we would fold it on the diagonal, and then we would fold the bottom flap up, and then because we didn't have scissors in our pockets, and the scissors were all probably kept in log cabinets, because public schools, whatever.
Yeah.
So then we would take this and we look at
Yep. Yep. Yep.
terrible, right?
Yep.
But that's how we would get that beautiful tear in, making our squares for, like, folding things origami style, right? And I thought, okay, well, that's the solution. I just teach everybody to lick the back of their quilts, and then we can just tear them,
Could you imagine?
right?
The amount of good video content we could get from just people like, I mean, short of paper cuts on your tongues, the amount of content we could get, just people licking the quilts. Like,
Right?
someone coming off like the street, walking into a quilt show, wanting to know what this is about, and you see all of us licking the quilt. They're like, nope, nope, not into it. I'm out.
Yep, yep. Um, and also, like, I like to eat chocolate when I quilt, so, like, I would get chocolate on the back of the quilt, like, it
Right.
would give like, again, it's a terrible solution, however, it's a step towards the right solution, and that is that we need, like, if we can just add a little bit of dampness, I'm not gonna use that M word that people hate, you're welcome. If we
Thank
can
you.
add a little bit of dampness along that seam line, not so much that we're soaking the paper, and definitely not so much that we're, like, making the quilt itself damp or soaking the quilt, then that will, because the I almost said the M word. The water, dampens those fibers, and that weakens the adhesive that's kind of holding all those paper fibers together, and that's why water is so great for this. So, I thought, well, I started by grabbing, like, a highlighter, and highlighter wasn't perfect
Mhm.
because also I had to, like, try to, like, wash it out 700 times to try to get the highlighter ink out of the highlighter. But I
Right.
started with, like, a highlighter to see if I could get that to work, and it was close enough. So then I just went to sourcing and said, "Hey, okay, send me all the different pens that we can find that, like, have these criteria. I don't want it to be a brush because I want the point to be very specific and stay in one spot."
Right.
but I do want it to be a fine, like a brush pointed tip, but not a brush. I want it to be foam like a highlighter. And I got a bunch of pens. I tried them out. I picked the one that we have today. And the great thing about it is that there's no refills to buy because you just fill it with water. So you take
Right.
this pen, you unscrew it, you fill it with water. Any water will work. You screw it back together, and then you just run it along your seams. If you use really good quality paper, you run it across your seams a couple times. So it works great for triangle paper as well. And some of those triangle papers are made on really good quality paper, but you just run it across the seams and then it tears out just like butter. And especially if I'm using like the newsprint style papers, I no longer shorten my stitch length when doing foundation paper piecing because it weakens the seams so much that I don't have to use a shorter stitch length. And why that's important is because the shorter your stitch length, the longer it takes to sew a seam.
Mhm.
So if you don't have to shorten your stitch length, you get quilts done faster. So the foundation piecing water pen makes it easier to tear out those papers and it actually allows you to finish your quilts faster.
Oh, party. That means I can, increase my stitch length then a little bit because I do have the pen. Love it. Everyone listening, you need one if you do FPP, because it works really, really well. But, yeah, I was still having a tighter stitch length for well, but I guess, yeah, I could yeah, that would counter it. I guess it still works, but, yeah, you could breeze through it fast. Look at you, just changing the game every day.
Well,
Look at
so
that.
the reason you need a shorter stitch length is 2 things. One is because you want the extra perforations to weaken
Right,
the paper,
right.
but the water weakens the paper, so that's been solved. And the other reason is because you want a stronger seam so that when you yank so hard against that
Right.
seam, those the more stitches have strengthened that seam, but you're not yanking hard anymore, so you don't need the more
Right.
perforations, you don't need the stronger seam. The only exception to this is if you're doing tiny foundation paper piecing where your seams are like less than 2 inches, I would still use a shorter stitch length just because it's a short seam
For
and you
sure.
wanna have more stitches in that short of a seam. But other than that, like with bigger stuff, man, I just use the regular stitch length.
And go for it and call it a day.
Yeah, no problems.
That's awesome. So a little earlier in our conversation, we chatted about it, but then we kind of breezed over it because it's just fun to talk. Oh, actually, no. Before we talk about that, which one of your like inventions, notions is your favorite? And I know that is very hard to dial in, but like if you had to pick one, like which one is your favorite?
You're making me pick a favorite child.
I know. I'm sorry.
That's mean.
I know. That's well, that's me.
Okay. I should just say, "No, I won't do it," but I'm gonna do
Y
it
you can
because
say no. You can
no,
say
that's
no.
boring, that's a boring answer, like, let's be controversial here for a minute. I'm going to say that my favorite would be the box bag template,
Okay.
and it's because, um, that's so before the box bag template, I had the spot on dot and I licensed that one, and
Okay.
then I had the idea for the box bag template and I was going to license it, and I presented it for licensing and I was told no. And I actually presented it for licensing to the same company a second time later and was told no again. So I was rejected not just once, but twice. And for anyone who is a human, you've experienced rejection and it sucks. It
Yeah.
just does. Like you have this like great idea and you know it's amazing. You know people are going to love it and you're being told no.
Right.
And no hurts. And so, oh my gosh, Caroline, why are you saying this is your favorite? It hurt you so much. Well, it did, but then I was encouraged to try it on my own, and I was like, "Well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to make my own products." Like, licensing was easy, like, I sign a contract, they make it, they do all the work, and then they send me a check every month. That's
Right.
amazing. I wanna do licensing.
Right.
I don't wanna make my own stuff, like, that sounds like a lot of really hard work. But I figured it out. Like, I made a bunch of phone calls to people that I'd never met before, that I didn't know, that gave me advice, which was incredible because this quilting community is so amazing.
Mhm.
That gave me advice, that told me where to go. I asked questions, I wrote that big check, and I mean, I sold out in I think it was like a week and a half
Wow.
of that first order that I had, and it proved to me that I need to bet on myself, that
Yeah.
I know and that I can do it, and so in what I make, like, the amount of money that I can make doing it myself, like, yes, I'm risking the dollars, but the profits are higher. It's higher risk, but higher reward versus licensing, which is no risk or very little risk, but also a lot less reward, financially. So it just taught, like, I can do this, and it got me to believe in myself, and all those other products that exist because I was told no, not just once, but twice.
Yeah. I think all of your notions are your favorite. The one this the experiences, the journey, the triumphs, the all the different things that you ran into from that box bag is just kind of what sets it apart a little bit for you, more of a, from like a memory standpoint, which I think is really cool. So thank you for answering that question on the spot. Appreciate it. Okay, so back to my earlier question. So we chatted a hair about this other topic, but we kind of breezed over it because we got into the portions of the notions. Talk to me about all of your different your patterns. Now, you're designing so many of your own patterns, and they're on the carolinamorepatterns.com. How would you like describe your style, and like what do you hope quilters take away from using your patterns?
So folks can buy my patterns, by the way, on my site, but I also encourage them to go to their local quilt shop and order from their local quilt shop. When you order from your local quilt, your favorite quilt shop, whether that be an in-person quilt shop, for some folks, their favorite local quilt shop is an online quilt shop. That's
Hmm.
amazing. That's great. Go support a quilt shop because I will still get paid. And we're also keeping the quilt shops alive. And quilt shops are a national treasure, both the online and the in person. We need them. They are an essential part of our quilty economy. Don't feel like you have to go buy it from my website. You absolutely are supporting me as a designer when you go buy it from a quilt shop, especially when that quilt shop may not know about me yet. So when you walk into that shop and say, "Hey, do you have this stuff?" And they go, "What stuff?" And you tell them about it. Well, now that quilt shop is going to buy not just the one that I would have sold you, but they're
Hmm.
going to buy a dozen and they're going to talk about it to other customers. So it actually helps me more when you buy from local quilt shops versus buying from me directly. So sorry, that's
No,
a
no, no, that's actually a really good point because I always tell people, I guess I should have prefaced this. I like to
it's
tell
okay.
people, check the designer website to find the designs that you like, but then, like you said, go to your local quilt store and say, "Hey, I think you should carry these. They're an amazing pattern, da 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 da," da," and then it just is this trickle effect. But then
Yep.
it is, of course, supporting that local quilt shop because, as many of us know, a lot of them are closing due to rising costs of a bunch of different things. And the more that we can keep open is what's going to keep things it's just going to keep things better, more sustainable for everybody. Having that local quilt shop is also great, just to be able to go in, chat with somebody because that might be the only person that people chat with for a week.
Yeah.
Just having that local space, even if it is online, is a really good point. So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm never wanna be in competition with quilt shops, but, anyway, so back to your question. So I like I like designing things that I think people would like to make, and so part of that is, like, what do I wanna make? What do I think is fun to make, and what do people wanna make? So I have a lot of project patterns that are, the box bag template patterns are almost entire. I think they all know there are no quilt patterns there. They're entirely project patterns.
Okay.
So bags, there's like a backpack, there's a bowl cozy, there's a casserole cozy, there's a wine gift bag, there's a gift bag, there's a sewing machine cover. So they're all like smaller fun projects because I love making quilts,
Hmm.
but I also need those like palette cleanser projects. Um, I also need gift items for people who straight up are not quilt worthy. Like, there are people in my life that should have a quilt that I have not had time to make them a quilt yet, but there are also people in my life who, like, for whatever reason, I'm in a position where I need to give them a gift, and people know that I do handmade, so there should probably be a handmade component, but I do not love them enough to make them a quilt.
No, and you already know they're not going to take care of it.
Right?
Yeah.
So, they can like, they can have a glasses case,
Yeah.
right? Well, I still made it, right?
It's
It's
fair.
cute, but, um So I like small projects, so I have a lot of small project stuff, and then I like quilts that allow me to play with different techniques. So there's some people who and you've got curves in your background, so it's what's coming to mind, but there's some
Mhm.
people who they love curves, they do curves, and if you are someone who loves curves, you're gonna follow this designer because you love all their curvy stuff, and if you're
Right.
someone who hates curves, you will never make a pattern by this designer because you're not a curves person, and
Right.
that's fair. Um, I'm trying to think if I have any curves patterns. I don't know that I do. I I kinda go all over and play with all different kinds of things.
Okay.
I I'm a notions junkie. I was before I just started designing notions of my own, but I've always been a notions junkie, so I like, playing with different rulers. That ruler of the month really gave me an excuse to play with different rulers and templates and what can this do and how does this work? Um, so I like those kinds of things. A lot of my, like, current patterns, um use my notions, so I've got a lot of box bag patterns. I have a ruler called the diamond strip ruler that makes diamond quilts easier. I
Ooh.
feel like Diamond diamond quilts look really cool,
Yeah.
but they look really scary because the corners are not right angles.
Mhm.
And so there I didn't develop the method for strip piecing diamonds, that already existed, but I made it easier by designing a ruler that has the diamond lines on the half inch along the entire ruler. So this one ruler lets you cut all your strips, and then it lets you subcut those strips once sewn together into diamond segments. So you're not dealing with individual diamonds, you have rows of diamonds at once,
Right.
and it makes it so much easier to put what looks like a really complicated quilt together.
Huh. Alright.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, I just I like things and figuring out how to make it easier.
Yeah, fair. I mean, that would that works,
Like
in many different fashions, but now you gotta step up the curves game because I like curves.
well, but the like, do I mean, if you're already doing curves and you're doing a great job on curves, do I need to step into that space? Because
Probably not, but I'd like to see a Carolina Moore curves pattern. I
Alright,
think it'd
that's
be
fair.
cool. I
Alright,
you don't have to step into the
okay.
space of, like, the notion part of it, but I'd like to see a cool pattern from you because 'cause I'm sure, like, your of course, all of your patterns are nothing like anyone else's, so I'd like to see one of yours. I don't know, that's my challenge for you today. Well, obviously, it doesn't have to be done today, of course, but
Yeah.
for
The
future you, that would be a cool thing to see.
well, I'll tell you what I tell everyone.
Okay.
I'll add it to the list.
That is my go-to line as well.
So mean.
Oh, so speaking of the list, you brought up a good thing. Earlier, you chatted about, your, books that you talked about in that schoolhouse presentation, the 1 and 2
Mhm.
presentation. I heard at QuiltCon that this fall, we should
Yes.
be expecting a new book and possibly a new ruler coming?
Yes.
Oh, is there any insight, sneak peek? Any I know you like to keep things close to the cuff, and totally respect that. Anything you can share with us that might be inspiration that helped you get these new ideas? You don't have to drop everything, of course, but I just
Okay, so I have a new book coming out. It is my 3rd book with this publisher and the 5th book that I've written,
okay.
and it is all about, um, 10-inch squares. So whether that be like, different companies call their 10-inch squares different things.
Right.
Obviously, the most popular is layer cakes, but there's, like, fabric wonders, 10-inch stackers, like, there's all kinds of different names for 10-inch squares, right?
Biggies, tiles, so many different ones, yeah.
Yep. So 10-inch squares, they come 42 in a stack, mostly, usually. Like the standard, I guess, is 42 in a stack. And
Right.
so I designed over 40 quilts that can be made with a single stack of 42-inch squares. No background fabric, no nothing else. It's just so you need just a layer cake and you'll have a full lap size quilt or
Sold.
baby size quilt.
Sold.
And there's about a dozen or so different designs, and then it's like how you use these designs is what makes the quilts.
Cool.
Um, and then because I love a ruler that makes
Yes.
my life easier, I designed a ruler, and it is called the Cake Cutter Ruler,
That's so cute.
right? And the cake cutter ruler has slots in it so you can draw your lines, whether you need your diagonal lines or your vertical lines, and then it
Right.
has only the it doesn't it's not a full gridded ruler, it has only the lines that you need on it to be able to subcut layer cakes down.
Oh,
And
okay.
depending on which brand you're using and where they're made, when you get those 10-inch squares, where the exact 10-inch can actually vary. It might be the edge of the points, it might be the middle of the points, it might be the base of the points. So this ruler itself is also 10 inches square, so you can stack them on like, I do about 6 layers of fabric at a time, and I put the ruler on top, and I square up my layer cakes to 10 inches. I
Okay.
square up those to a true 10 inches so that when I go to sew it together, it's going to sew together more accurately. So
Right.
you have a 10-inch ruler to be able to square up those pieces, plus all the other measurements in there to be able to subcut, plus the notches in there to be able to draw your diagonal lines and your vertical lines, all in one ruler.
This is exciting.
And then I've designed it, so hopefully quilt shops will pick it up as basically the best block of the month you've ever done. Except because it's not a block of the month, it's a quilt of the month,
Right.
where quilt shops can set up a block of the month style program and that they can name it whatever they want, but I name it Cake Party because then you also have an excuse to have cake, and you
Right.
can celebrate birthdays because we don't celebrate enough, so let's celebrate all the birthdays, and there's never enough cake, so let's celebrate it with cake.
We love cake. Yes.
And the kind of is the buy-in. So generally when you have a block of the month style program, there's some kind of buy-in. So the buy-in is your book and your ruler, because then you have everything you need to make the quilts every single month. And then each month you get to come in for your block of the month program, and you leave with that month's 10-inch square pack of fabrics. And then the next month you get to come in with your completed quilt. And because there's over 40 different designs in the book, different people will pick a different design, and you'll
Right.
get to see that stack of fabric made a dozen or more different ways
Right.
and get inspired by how other people are using it. And so every month you get to make a quilt just using this 10-inch squares of fabric. Yep.
Oh, I'm so excited. I will need I'm gonna be picking that up because that's exciting. I love a good pre-cut because it's pre-cut, obviously.
Yep.
And having that, of course, being able to square it up to the true size because I do think that's an interesting thing to talk about. Like you said, each company's pre-cuts, where they cut it might not be the true 10 or 5 inch or whatever it is. It's just depending on kind of where those notches are, like you said. So having that ruler to truly size it up is, I think it's a game changer, honestly.
Thank you.
Yes, look at you. So, I we've talked about so much, and all I can think about is you're managing multiple websites, you're creating products, you're teaching, you're doing video tutorials, you got this amazing, large audience following, you've got these future products that you're working on. How do you how do you stay inspired to keep to continue to like innovating and being creative? Because sometimes like it can be a little difficult. Like sometimes I find myself in a rut and I'm just like, okay, I got to get myself out of I got to get my mojo back. How do you find to keep staying inspired and being creative and keep innovating?
I mean, I think that, well, part of it is like I'm excited about these things. Like I'm excited about getting these out into the world and having people because I know people are going to be excited about it. I know that they'll enjoy getting to make these things and do these things. So that's a big part of it for me is, I mean, I could make these things just for myself and sit in my own little studio and do them all by myself, but that's
Yeah,
not fun. Like quilting is really more about the community than it is about the quilts.
right,
So like sharing it with the community is like the biggest part. Um and I, I don't know, like, there are definitely days where I'm not inspired. Like, I
right.
don't want to leave people with an impression that, like, I wake up sunshine and roses every day, and I hop out of bed out of my from my beautiful, like, 6 deep stacked quilt bed of, like and, like, step on a quilted rug and go into my bathroom where I have quilted towels, and, my face automatically looks human and awake, and, um that, I then go work, a perfect 6.5 hour day at the office, and then I go pick my children up from school and sit down at the table and help them with their homework, and then, have a perfectly cooked meal that I serve on quilted placemats at night. Like, this is like, if you have this illusion of me, I'm gonna burst that bubble so hard right now.
Literally, just gave us a Hallmark movie, basically.
Right? Right when like, that sounds amazing, like, I
Yeah.
want that. Um, but no, this is not the reality.
Yeah.
Um, the reality is that, we do home cooked meals a couple nights a week. My middle schooler goes to a school that they don't have homework. Um, that my oldest, he actually works for me twice a week and he helps pack orders. Uh, my husband, he has a smoker and he really likes to smoke things, and I like when he cooks. I mean, not only is it delicious, he does a really great job, but also then I don't cook.
Right.
Um, there are some nights where I'm here till 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. It's not out of this world for me to be here till 3 in the morning sometimes
Yeah.
when I've got videos that need to be edited and things that need to get done. Um, and so it's trying to find like perfect moments. Oh, I'm banging on my
You're
microphone,
fine.
sorry.
You're fine.
Um, it's trying to find those perfect moments. Um, I spend time with my kiddo. I'm drop him off at school and I pick him up from school. Like that is my moments with him where I get to connect with him the most.
Yeah.
So, and Yeah, we I wanna create something for my kids. I don't know that they're gonna want to be quilters or be in the quilting industry,
Yeah.
um, but at the end of it all, all that will be left is what I leave behind, and I hope that it's good stuff.
Yeah, make me cry.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. It's when my mom talked to me about how, how she obviously she didn't start, Linda V. Taylor started it, but my mom bought it from her. And she always told me her goal was to create this like legacy empire that my brother and I would have something when, when they decided to move on or when they were gone. And she's definitely done that. My brother wants nothing to do with quilting. He's a pilot, but still like she's given me an amazing platform to be able to do what I do, and so I can, and that keeps her inspired. So I like the story. I like to hear a little bit more about how others kind of get through things because we all have something going on. Yeah, it's not everyone's got fluffy, like you said, quilted rugs and rainbows and butterflies and quilted placemats and the perfect meal and all that stuff. So having that inspiration, it keeps you going. Those moments with your kids that you're helping someone, get over something, you're helping inspire somebody else on their creative journey, helping someone start quilting again, like that's what's keeping you going. And I think that's absolutely incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, those comments that I get on the YouTube channel or responses to my emails of how, yeah, I impacted someone that I've never met that I probably will never get to meet in person.
Yeah.
And then like events like QuiltCon where I do get to run into people in person, like, oh, I watch your channel. I love what you do. And like the people who are excited to meet me,
Yeah.
they don't realize that I am at least as excited, if not more excited to meet them because I do this by myself often in the dark, in a room, and that like, these are the people who are on the couch in their pajamas that I'm doing this for, that I get to meet them, like, that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, no, I that's it is a really cool feeling when someone comes up and says, "Oh my gosh, I love watching your videos." And like you said, I'm probably more fangirling than they are, because it's just it's a really cool experience overall. Just yeah, I'm never at a loss for words. You've got me at a loss for words on that one, so thank you for that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
what advice would you give to somebody that is, looking to a creator or a quilter or something that's looking at turning their passion into a full-on business or an entrepreneurial journey? Kind of like what's like that one key piece of advice that you wish past Carolina would have listened to or been told or been given?
Run away, don't do it. Um,
Not the runaway, don't do it.
so so I had to
You had
because
to, you had
it's
to.
also
I set it up for it, I did.
it's also not entirely wrong. So the thing to know, like, go in with open eyes, that the thing to know is that if you make quilting your business,
Mhm,
it's now a business and it's not a hobby.
right,
And that like, duh, Caroline, of course, I knew that, right? But what the implications of that are is that I don't necessarily get to make a quilt because I want to make a quilt.
right,
Right? I'm not spending my days making quilts for all of my friends' baby showers anymore.
right,
I mean, I'm also at an age where my friends aren't having babies anymore. It's gonna be closer to me making baby quilts for, like, their grandkids soon.
right,
But I don't get to quilt just for the joy of quilting. I still absolutely get joy out of quilting. I don't want to, but things are done on deadlines,
yeah,
and I actually look forward to the deadlines because those are the things that actually get me to get the things done.
fair,
Um So and there was an entire span of it was over 2 months last year that I didn't touch a sewing machine for over 2 months, because I had so much computer work and business work and, like, the back end parts of the business to do that I did not have the time to get to do the sewing.
right,
Um, and that will happen, and lots of designers will tell you that they're like, we don't get to sew nearly as much as people think that we do get to sew. And then when I am sewing, it's, my block of the month quilt that I do online, on video. All of those videos are recorded in like October-ish, like
mhm,
September, between September and October. All of them. And this year there were 27 of them. That's a lot of videos to be filming in a short amount of time. Most of
Yeah,
those blocks are made over the course of, like, 2 days. So what you're seeing spread out over the course of 12 months,
right.
I'm doing in 2 days. And it's still fun and I still love doing it, but those, like, the 3 AMs where I'm like, "Okay, I have to film 6 blocks today
Mhm.
because that's how I'm gonna stay on schedule." And so I get those 6 blocks filmed back to back to back to back. It's also part of the reason that, like, I wear the same t-shirt in all my videos because then you don't like, I don't have to worry about, "All right, this what shirt was I wearing in the January video? What shirt was
Right.
I wearing in the March video?" It's all me, it's all the same. Sometimes I'll put my hair up between videos so that it looks a little different, but I honestly I don't think people really care, and I don't think they notice, but if they notice, I don't think they care
Wow.
that it but, yeah, I mean, the book that's coming out, this fall has I'm trying to remember how many quilts I did. It was like 18, 16 quilts? I don't remember. Um,
Wow.
it's I mean, they're lap size quilts, they're not like huge bed-size
But
quilts,
still.
but these quilts were done largely over 2 sessions. Like, I did the first 6 in, like, 2 weeks, and I did the next, like, 8, so I guess it wasn't quite 16. I think the next was, like, 8, in, like, another 2 weeks. Like,
Mhm.
right after Christmas. It's like, "Okay, Christmas is done, I gotta get these quilts done."
Yeah.
And it was lovely. I mean, I absolutely loved that week after Christmas where no one's bothering you because everyone is, like, all in their post-Christmas, like, haze,
Right.
and I just got to come in and sew all day and come in and sew all day and put things on the long arm and sew while things are on the long arm and then, bind them, and everything also got a sleeve and a label. I can't make quilts that don't have sleeves or labels anymore.
Yeah.
Every quilt has a job, and because it is a working quilt, it needs to have a sleeve and a label.
Fair. It's gotta have everything that it needs
Yeah.
to serve its purpose for you and for the people. Fantastic. Well, Carolina, thank you so much for spending some time with me today here at the table, and we got to learn a little bit more about your journey, and I really appreciate you taking out the time to chat.
Thanks for having me. It's always so fun to, like, get to talk to a real human.
Compared to this little glass camera, I understand.
Yeah.
Before you leave us, can you we chatted about your website and a few other places, but could you do a quick like plug for ways that people can find you, follow you, and all those good things?
I mean, if you Google me, Carolina Moore, spelled like the state Carolina and Moore with 2 O's, you can find me just about anywhere. So I'm on YouTube as Carolina Moore. I'm on Instagram as Craft Moore, Moore with 2 O's, but I'll also come up as Carolina Moore. My blog is still there, although I blog like maybe once a month at this point, and it's always expectmore.com. And then my pattern shop, if you want to peruse it and go shop at a local quilt shop that is your favorite, is carolinamorepatterns.com.
Fabulous. And I will make sure to have all those links in the description below for everyone that is watching or listening. That way you can easily hop over to them and go straight to the exact page that you need to be. So
Awesome.
awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll chat with you later.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was our incredible episode with Carolina Moore here at the Crafters Roundtable. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about her journey, along with all of her different notions, tools, and it's just fun just to sit down and chat with her. She's such an amazing person. Hop over to her Instagram, give her a follow so you can stay up to date with everything that she's doing. And I can't wait to see that new book and ruler come out this fall because I'll be one of the first in line. Thank you so much for joining me here at Crafters Roundtable. I'll see you next time. Bye.